Welcome, listeners. My name is Krishna Kumar. I am the founder and now managing director at Quintrix. Today, I have a really exciting guest, Gavin Cooper, who brings a wealth of knowledge around user experience. Um, Gavin, why don't you take a quick minute to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Great. Thank you, Krishna. It's great. It's great to be here and have this opportunity to talk to you and your audience. Quick background on me. I've been in the UX design field for multiple decades, coming up on 26 years here, kind of ranging from graphic design background. Started my own company with my wife, Cooper Graphic Design, a number of years ago. I kind of went into the large enterprise, the Vanguard group, big financial institution, to kind of grow and mature their digital practice. I'll say about 12 years ago. So I've been part of the evolution of my small agency with my wife for a number of decades. I was also a professor for a number of years while I was doing that, and then came into Vanguard about 12 years ago to be part of the digital transformation era, for sure at Vanguard, but others were certainly part of that wave as well. So I lead UX strategy, UX designers, UX content within the Vanguard ecosystem.
So, Gavin, I presume you've done quite a bit of hiring in your career. I'd love to focus on the early talent piece of things because that's an area of our passion. That's what we do for a living.
Yeah.
What skills and qualities do you typically look for when hiring early in career user experience professionals,
Yeah.
especially in the context of financial services?
No, it's a great question. Something we talk a lot about as a leadership team is how do we think about not only hiring for the needs right now, but what are we going to need 5 years from now? And when we hire, we have that in mind, that we want people to stay for the long term for a whole host of reasons, which I'll touch on. But to answer your question, we certainly look at the portfolio and visual design skills that they bring, much like any typical interview. But I think beyond the kind of visual design skills that you would expect, we also expect to see this element of curiosity within the projects, within the person, of how they really went about asking questions towards their project or towards their case study, getting at the real heart of the problem to be solved, right? There was a human problem of some sort, maybe a business problem, et cetera. So I really compressed on how they went about asking questions, how they went about talking to their stakeholders or the clients themselves, and kind of tease out truly what the heart of the problem was, and then how were the design decisions that they're going to make kind of in support of that. So this kind of curiosity skill set is what I seek. If they don't necessarily offer that, I'll ask questions on that and sort of tease that out.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is a really great indicator of sort of a long-term success of the candidate, because I guess no matter how higher up you're in your role, the ability to ask the right questions and to critically think is a really important skill set,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
100%. Yeah, and I would also add, you touched on something, complexity for sure. How do they navigate complexity, and do they have complexity within their portfolio itself, where you have to think about the complexity of the business, the complexity of the user needs, imperfect information at times. Like, did they have that in their experience? And they may not have, and that might be an okay thing. But the one thing that you mentioned, financial services in particular, it's a complex industry. It's complex to break it down into making it easy to use, make it consumable, make it accessible, et cetera. And you have to work with a lot of people in order to do that. So, what is their experience and comfort level with ambiguity and complexity is something I really try to press on.
Absolutely. So let's assume for a minute that I am someone who's passionate about user experience. I'm just looking to kick off my career in this space. I perhaps have a bootcamp experience, or perhaps went to college to learn user experience, but not a ton of professional work experience, right? What can I do as a prospective candidate to stand out among dozens of others that might be applying to a, very desirable organization like Vanguard?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's always a chicken and an egg, right? You need the experience to get the
Right.
to advance in your career, and so on and so forth. And I think it's really important. I think on one hand, I would just own kind of where you are in your career and be really authentic about that. And I say that because I have seen certain resumes or certain candidates, um, try to hide, or they feel a little bit nervous about that or feel like they're less than because of it. And I don't necessarily think they should feel that way. So on one hand, I think just, be authentic in where you are and be honest with, what your aspirations are, even if it's to just build skill set and get more experience. I think that's a totally fair way to show up to a leader in an interview, or at least from my perspective. That said, I certainly feel it's completely up to the candidate to develop, thought leadership, a perspective of sorts. That's what I'm looking for when I interview talent. So I'm thinking about ways in which to develop a freelance practice, to develop projects on their own, and or develop case studies that they could really showcase their skill set that they've learned. And it's okay that it might be academic, and it might be okay that it's like theoretical in nature, but if it shows thinking and it shows process, that's what I'm interested in. The real projects are always going to necessarily, shine maybe more than, academic projects. But if the thinking is there and the passion is there, and I can see that they're really interested in a career, not necessarily just a job for the short term, but they're interested in the long term, I'm sort of comfortable with that. So I would certainly maintain the type of work and try to get access to work, even if it's pro bono, to showcase your talent. And if that's not totally available, thought leadership, writing, and or perspective is something I think is completely fair and interesting to me to consume. So one way or another, just kind of be authentic in how you show up, but also be very deliberate around your point of view. That's what we're seeing. It's not necessarily number of projects, it's really point of view that we're seeking.
I really love that perspective, and not a lot of managers that I speak to always are forthcoming about that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they intrinsically feel that way, I think it's great advice for someone starting off is just own where you are, right?
Yeah.
And especially talking about personal projects, you don't have to have worked in a corporation. You don't have to have done an internship if you didn't have an opportunity, but just showing that initiative of being able to come up with a problem statement and trying to solve for it speaks volumes, right, about someone starting off their career. And we do exactly that. A lot of time in our programs, we don't look for just individuals with a formal education in that field. We also look for individuals who are career switchers, right? And the only way to ensure that they are a right fit for what we're trying to train them on is that for them to be able to actually show that they have a passion for it. And the best way to do that is to show initiative, like personal projects, GitHub code if you're a software engineer, right? Like shows what you've done, right? And what initiative you've taken. So great advice for someone kicking off their career. How do you ensure UX decisions around accessibility and inclusivity in the workplace, Gavin?
That's a good question. In my role, we certainly have a complex user experience in the mobile app, desktop experience, et cetera. So we have to really build it into our practice. So we have an internal design system that has a lot of flexibility, but it also puts certain UI components in place, puts in best practices of dev, and accessibility is at really the top of that list. It must be part of not only a UX practice, but an engineering practice and really a business practice, that the accessibility of the UI, for all of the needs of contrast, the needs of legibility, the needs of screen readers, et cetera, just must be first and foremost kind of a design principle. It's not a nice to have, right? And maybe at times in our history in UX, it sort of has been, and it's unfortunate at times. But I think we've made a lot of ground in this space, especially at Vanguard. We put it first and foremost as really a business imperative, more so than just a design imperative, if that makes sense. So as we build and as we design, accessibility is really kind of at the top three principles that we embed into our design system.
And are there industry standards for that, or does each enterprise sort of decide what is the right amount of accessibility?
No, it's a great question. And in the enterprise, we have our sort of tilts one way or another based on our audience, but generally there's industry standards and practices that we hold ourselves to by way of compliance. So, and they're very accessible by way of testing. We also have an accessibility office that will kind of independently review some of our client experiences and journeys and give us really, really detailed feedback based on industry standard. And there might be some nuances because we are in a regulated environment as well that does surface in that reporting, but it really is kind of industry standard that everybody, not just Vanguard, should be and is held accountable to. And this office allows us and affords us the ability to just have eyes wide open to how well we're doing and holds us accountable, because we all need to be held accountable.
Right.
To it. Yeah.
I was recently interviewing another guest who is an expert at data analytics and engineering. And one of the things he talked about was how the business objective needs to always drive data analytics, because otherwise you could get sucked into a rabbit hole and do endless amount of spend or endless amount of time and resource on something that may or may not be necessary. And he also said that oftentimes 20% of analytics will give you 80% of the desired results that you need. I'm assuming the same principle stands for user experience as well. Can you share with us an example of a project perhaps that you worked on that had a significant impact on customer experience or a business outcome?
Sure. You're absolutely right. I mean, data, one way or another, quantify, qualitative and or quantitative data really drives, I'll say, all decision making one way or another. And it's really the balance of those two types of data that we use internally, because we certainly use data and analytics to understand the business problem at a deeper level, to understand how to focus, how to prioritize, so on and so forth. And then we marry that with qualitative data from user experience and to understand the why something is happening. So the quantitative data often gives us the how much and the magnitude, and then the qualitative gives us insights on kind of the human need at a richer and deeper level. And I'll give you one example. We, in a number of ways, our client experience seeks to enable our customers to plan and manage their retirement. So often a longer term view of things and the management of that throughout one's life and or career. And as we've developed a lot of different planning tools to help support them, knowing that we have a lot of acumen across the spectrum of high financial literacy to just starting out in financial literacy. So we have to serve all of those needs. So one particular example comes up is when we were trying to design a retirement planning experience for what we thought was all users, but actually, as we found out through analytics and through really client interviews, when we watched clients using the experience, and I say we as in all disciplines, it's not just a UX discipline activity within Vanguard, everybody kind of participates in the client research. And what we found is, while the experience would have been optimal from a retirement planning outcome, it wasn't applicable for all scenarios and all audiences, which at the end of the day was more intimidating to some than it was to others. So we had to really think about the ways in which we engage financial acumen. And if we didn't have the data to tell us that, we would have gone with a fair amount of assumptions, a fair amount of bias, and a lot of opinion, et cetera. And those things are, opinion is okay to a certain degree. The research, you need to hear from clients specifically around what they truly feel and how they are interpreting the experience. And in our case, we assumed too much acumen, or it was really easy to use, and we just assumed that. And we actually had to go back and think about, we need to give different entry points into this. We need to almost tease out where the clients are in their journey to then be able to drive a more one-to-one experience. We went into it with a bit of a one-to-all approach, and we then figured out we needed to get more tailored to the acumen of where they were from an investment standpoint.
Right. So Gavin, no interview would be complete without a question about AI, right? What is sort of your take on AI influencing the future of design? And what can someone who is, like I said, starting out their career in this field do to prepare for that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Certainly a hot question. It's being asked in a lot of different forums. So I would love to say I have the answer per se, but I'll give you my perspective, because I honestly think we don't ultimately know as an industry what is going to happen. We certainly have perspectives. I mean, the one thing is it's certainly going to be a sizable effect for us in the next number of years. For now, I think we're really seeing early stage kind of use cases for it as a tool, right? So it is a tool that can allow us to get information more accessibly, faster. We can do richer research and ways in which to actually have almost a coach alongside of us. So I think you're seeing a lot of automation of workflows, a lot of things that were manual becoming a little bit more, accessible, faster, so on and so forth. I honestly see it as a tool that will allow us to unlock future opportunities and future problems that we otherwise couldn't get access to. So I think we will save a lot of time in our day-to-day to then be able to actually ask more meaningful, richer questions and solve bigger problems that we're just not able to get to today. So I do think AI and its capabilities will afford us kind of bigger and richer thinking. And I think in some ways it will automate, certain tasks that people are doing in a manual state, and that may give a certain amount of discomfort, right? So if I'm designing a UI, but there can be this automated UI that can surface. That is likely going to happen, but at the same time, there's still going to be a human problem, a human, or business need that we will all need to discuss in a more deeper, richer level, because everyone's going to have access to the same AI tools. So they're going to come up with the same AI solution. So we're still going to need to have differentiation and kind of human need factored into how we apply AI to the problem itself. The problem is still going to need to be solved. And I don't necessarily think AI is just going to automatically solve all of the problems. So for anyone starting out in their career, one, I would embrace it. I would just understand that this is going to be an effect. There's going to be ambiguity even year to year as we understand how best to use it. Is it going to affect our workflows? Yes. Is it going to affect the types of problems? Yes. It also will likely generate new jobs, new roles that we don't necessarily have today. And I would just be eyes wide open to that and be very flexible on and excited, in my opinion, on how that will form itself. And there's certainly risks and there's certainly ethical questions that we need to be solving as we go through this, but it's going to be solved by someone. So it might as well be solved by us in the design community is the way I sort of look at it. It's not dissimilar to decades ago when the internet became this wave that affected graphic design. I mean, we're almost coming to a next wave of change that I think we embraced it back then. I think I would embrace it now and really kind of be on the lead of your perspective, your tools, the way you think and see the world. And I think AI as your kind of co-pilot is a good way to approach that, in my opinion.
Any quick word of advice for peers or leaders in the UX industry? What can they do to help that next generation of talent coming in, especially from mentorship perspective?
Yeah, well, I think you hit on the magic word there. Mentorship, I think, is, I don't necessarily think it's a nice to have. I honestly see it as a responsibility to a certain degree, where you know all of us were helped along the way, informally or formally, by all the people around us in formal education or career or otherwise. So I think it's something to really embrace and lean into. You have something to offer. So being proactive as a mentor, I think it drives so much value. It has served me so well. I've learned so much from that process in itself. Mentorship goes two ways. So I would really lean in, volunteer, be open and clear that you would like to and seek, mentees in your career path. You will grow in the process. They will grow in the process, and it's really just such a win-win. But it does take time. So I just encourage everyone to take even dedicated time per week to just commit to either learning to become or actually participating in a mentoring relationship. It's been the strongest relationships in my career have been through mentoring engagements one way or another. So I can't support it enough. I think it's just a must do as a leader.
Yeah, Evan, it's been a pleasure to connect with you at a personal level, get to know you a little bit more, and I hope to continue this relationship. But most importantly, I want to seriously thank you for the time you've given to us today and sharing your thoughts around user experience and your career and such. And this is going to be truly insightful, especially for individuals starting out their career in this space. So thank you, and I look forward to being in touch with you.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.